Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. It has been a minute, but I wanted to talk about my son's benign neonatal sleep myoclonus. So for those of you who are interested in this topic or who know someone or had someone suffering with this condition, I wanted to share our experience with it. For those of you who also don't know, my name is Marla and I am a mom of 4. So I have 3 kids that I had, and then I had a 6-year gap, and then I just had my son Liam, and he was the one who had the sleep myoclonus. So I want to share our experience very quickly, start to finish, and at the end of this I'm going to share some clips of what his little twitches or seizures looked like, for those of you who are wondering if this is something similar to maybe what your baby or child has. So stay to the end and you guys can see kind of what that looked like. But at the end of the day, it was a very stressful period of time for the period that it lasted for. And we did some things naturally and holistically to hopefully help minimize the duration of this condition. So I'm going to share all of that with you. Whether or not they helped, I don't know, but I'm going to just dive in. Okay. So my son was born on July 28th of 2022. And, he was born with heart arrhythmias, he was jaundiced, and he actually had a broken collarbone because it was a very, very, very traumatic birthing process. Essentially, his head was just hitting my, sorry, just getting a phone call. His head was hitting my tailbone for a good like 12, 13 hours of labor. He was not progressing and I had a broken tailbone. So I have a whole video on it, but essentially there was trauma to his head. They don't think it was anything intense, but we do know his head was hitting my tailbone. So with the body kind of pushing him and not having anywhere to go and his head kind of coming in contact with my tailbone rather than coming out of the birthing canal, I believe that that degree of trauma could have caused something. His pediatrician said that no, that would not have caused the benign neonatal sleep myoclonus, but this is just my thoughts and opinions. So just as a mom, that's kind of what I was thinking, was maybe that was something that triggered it. But anyway, he was born. We did not know that he had this condition. We actually found it. We brought him home from the hospital after one day. And then the midwife came and tested him and said, oh, he's jaundiced. You need to go back to the hospital because he was in the high risk zone. You need to go back to the hospital to see a pediatrician and kind of maybe get some treatment for him. So we went back to the hospital and he didn't end up needing treatment at the time, thankfully. So we were there for about 6 hours, and this was when he was 2 days old. We ended up driving back home and to bring him home after that visit. This is when we started seeing the seizures. So I was sitting in the back with him and my husband was in the front, and I was just looking at him. And guys, I've had 4 kids, so I know the difference between like a baby jerk, you know, how babies are kind of jerky when they're little, versus a twitch. And so I was looking at his foot, and all of a sudden I just saw it kind of go like this, like just like a very fast, like twitching or vibrating. And I was like, that is not a baby twitch. There's something nervous system happening here. So I was like, I said to my husband right away, I was like, his foot is twitching and it's weird. And he's like, oh, it's probably, you know, just like what babies do. And I was like, no. Like I think there's something going on here. And keep in mind, guys, we were in the car. So we were driving. For those who are not aware, sleep myoclonus is triggered by motion and sound typically. And it happens obviously while the baby is sleeping. So the baby has to be sleeping for it to happen if it's benign neonatal sleep myoclonus, and there's typically motion or something to trigger it, okay? So it also, I should say for those watching this and don't know, this type of seizure does not cause brain damage or any effects. So if there's an EEG happening, you can't tell like through like the brain waves, they don't see any difference. So that's how they can kind of confirm that it is benign neonatal sleep myoclonus. There's no interference in the brain waves, okay? And again, this happens when it's sleeping. So at the end of the day, because it's benign, there's nothing serious with this condition. You don't have to stress that he's gonna have brain damage or developmental delays. It's just some kind of twitching motion that happens, okay? So to continue, we were driving, I started noticing his little foot going like this. The longer we drove, the more it started just twitching really fast, and then both feet started going, and then eventually both arms and like kind of head and all that started going as well. So eventually his whole body was seizing, and obviously at that point I was like, there's something wrong. But this is what we did. So back up a few minutes, I noticed his foot twitching. It twitched again. I was like, can we just pull over? I was so stressed out. Guys, keep in mind, you can watch my video, but I had an insanely traumatic birth. I was beyond exhausted. I was so overwhelmed, and I was so tired of him because, not of him, I should finish the sentence. I was so tired of him developing new conditions, because within a 24-hour span, he was diagnosed with heart arrhythmias, severe high-risk jaundice, broken collarbone, and so many other things as well. And I was like, what else can this kid have? My heart was breaking for him. So at this point, I was like, there is something wrong. I said, let's just pull over. Let's de-stress. He's been through so many testing, pokes and pricks. I was like, maybe he is just stressed out and needs to be held skin to skin. So we pulled over, we took him out, we held him for a minute, not skin to skin, but we held him close, kind of calmed him down, and that woke him up. We didn't know at the time what his condition was. So he woke up and his seizure stopped. So we're like, okay, maybe he's just stressed out. Let's just get home. Let's get him skin to skin. Let's get him in a warm bath. Let's just take care of him and let him calm down. I thought maybe this is triggered by stress. So anyways, fast forward now, we called the midwife. She would never, I guess, heard of this condition ever. We didn't know the name of it either. I just said, my son is twitching. I sent her a video. She's like, I feel like it's just normal baby twitches, so it doesn't seem concerning to me. She's like, but if you are feeling in your gut that it's not normal, you got to go see a pediatrician. So I told my husband, I was like, we're not going to go to a pediatrician right now. We're going home. We're going to relax. And thankfully, my uncle is a doctor. So I was like, I will call my uncle when I get home and we'll talk to him about it. So as we're getting home, that's, like I said, when I started noticing his feet going together, then his arms both started twitching at the same time. They're kind of like lifting up and down like that. And then his head kind of started going too. So we knew, okay, he's having some kind of twitch or seizure. We didn't know what it was at the time, but I was filming it. And we were like, this is not normal. We got him home, we undressed him, held him to us. He woke up, so the seizure stopped, and we're like, okay, maybe that's all he needs is just some one-on-one snuggle time and relaxation. But we still called my uncle. I sent him some videos. He watched it, and he right away said, these are seizures. I don't know what type. I don't know what's happening, but go to McMaster Children's Hospital, which is about an hour and a half away from us. The hospital we have near us is a great hospital, but they don't deal with much pediatrics, and they don't have the equipment and the doctors and the staff to deal with things like this. They don't have, they don't do EEGs or anything like that either. So I was beside myself. I was like, we can't drive an hour and a half. We realized that the car is, we didn't know this was only happening when he's sleeping, but what we did realize so far at the time, again, remember, we have no clue what's going on. So we're kind of just putting pieces together, and we're like, he seems to only be twitching in the car. So we thought it was triggered by motion, not realizing it's only happening when he's sleeping and things like that. So the last thing I want to do is drive an hour and a half to McMaster when he was going to be having these, what I thought were seizures that could be really damaging to him. So it was a very traumatic and stressful period, but my uncle said to go right away. He's like, if these are actual seizures, you cannot let him keep having them. You have to take him. So we ended up going to McMaster. He seized the entire way because he was in a deep sleep. I didn't know, again, it was triggered by sleep. I thought it was by motion. So I was trying to kind of hold him and stop him from moving too much. It was really stressful because at one point I had to pull over. We took him out and he was just seizing so bad in my arms. Like his arms were just shaking like crazy, his feet, and I could just feel his body vibrating against mine. And it was one of the most stressful and traumatic things that I went through because, again, I have not slept. I was already in so much pain from everything that happened. And now just, you know, taking in his broken collarbone and all his issues and dealing with this on top of that, it was really bad. But anyway, we ended up getting to the McMaster emergency. This was like the middle of the night, guys. It was like 2 or 3 in the morning. And they took him in really quick because I guess whenever there's like seizures or things like that, they get first priority. So thankfully they took us in quick. We started seeing doctors. It took us about a good 18, 19 hours from start to finish to see some doctors and get some blood work done. They had him on IVs. They had him on blood work. Poor little guy had a whole like cast because he had the IV and they had the cast to just hold his arm in place. He was just suffering so much, my heart. But at the end of the day, we were there and they're like, we believe, based on we showed him so many videos and they were really happy we took videos. So that's one thing, guys, if you know someone who has this condition, or if one of your children do, take videos so you can show the pediatrician, because they had no clue what we were talking about until we showed them videos. But anyway, he saw a bunch of doctors. After 18, 19 hours and blood work and things, infections and all kinds of things came back negative. All they had that at the end, his jaundice was getting a little bit better as well. So all they had to go off of were these videos. They said, if everything else is fine, we're just relying on the videos. And he was diagnosed with this condition. And she explained to us, the doctors, that it is a benign seizure again, so it's not going to affect him. She said, we cannot do an EEG because it's the weekend, so they're not here to do one for you guys. She says, so go home, be with your family. If he's seizing in the car, it's okay. It triggers only when he's sleeping and when he's seizing, but don't wake him up because he needs to have his sleep, and that's detrimental for newborns. He was only 3 days old. She's like, so just, it's hard to watch, but it's fine. Just go home. It's okay if he's having these little seizures, and come back on Tuesday for an EEG. And so we did that. We drove home, but we drove slow. We would keep stopping to wake him up, even though she told us not to. Watching him go through these seizures at their peak was so scary because his whole body's almost convulsing, and it was really hard to watch. So we kept pulling over to try and wake him up a little bit and to get him out of it. Every time he hit a certain deep sleep, paired with motion or sound, so if we were in a room with a lot of people talking, he would have these seizures. Anyway, we got home, we spent 2 days back with the kids and the family, and then the next day we drove back to McMaster for his EEG, which confirmed this condition. Essentially, they put all like the little probes all over his head, and we sat there for an hour, and they let him fall asleep, and they watched him while he's sleeping, how his brain waves are, and whatever, I don't know what they look at, but they looked at a whole bunch of things, and they said there's no interference with the brain waves, there's no damage, so he's clearly having this condition, this benign seizure condition. And so it was diagnosed and confirmed. So now to the good part. I have been having so many questions on when it cleared up and what we did supplementally. So I'm going to say, guys, I am a homeopathic practitioner and holistic nutritionist, but I am not a doctor, and I have no way to confirm if these things helped. I feel like they would have helped because we read so many studies on this condition that all said it's going to peak at 5 weeks and then start to improve and can clear up anywhere between, 3 months to a year, okay, or more. So we were expecting this to go on for a longer time. Sure enough, he did peak at 5 weeks. The seizures got so bad, I was like in tears constantly, because even though everyone kept telling me they're not hurting him, I was like, how can he be shaking this much and not be feeling it and not be in some kind of discomfort? And so it was really hard to watch him get so severe. But we knew that as soon as he got so severe at 5 weeks, that was the peak, and that it would hopefully start to improve from there. So that gave us some hope. But here's what we did. First of all, he ended up clearing up and his seizures completely went away by week 7. So 7 weeks old, he stopped. And I could not believe it because we thought it would be 6, 8 months, a year based on all the research articles we were reading and other families with this condition. So the fact that it cleared up by 7 weeks, I do feel like what we did for him interventionally did help. Again, I can't confirm, but it did clear up quick. So this is what we did. First of all, we took him to a chiropractor. His birthing process was so traumatic that we knew and his broken collarbone and all the things, we knew he had, he couldn't even latch onto the right side when I was nursing him because he couldn't even turn his head that way. So we knew he had misalignment or disalignment within his spine. So we took him to a chiropractor who started adjusting him right away and started working on rebalancing, readjusting his spine to rebalance his nervous system. And because he's twitching and seizing, I figured if this is a nervous system condition, having adjustments can definitely be beneficial as it sends proper signals through the nerves. So we ended up doing that. He's still seeing his chiro. He was going 3 days a week in the beginning for the longest time, and now we're just going once a month. And let me tell you that every time he would get an adjustment, the seizures became less and less and less. Okay, so less frequent, less intense, more mild, more spread apart, everything. Every time he got an adjustment, it just got better. So I was like, obviously to me this was working, but I can't guarantee 100%. The other thing we did was supplements. I was giving him a good amount of wild caught fish oil, which we know that through lots of studies, the EPA and DHA content is incredible for the nervous system and the brain. and is very calming and relaxing. So I was giving that to him daily. He was getting some bottles of breast milk that I would pump. So I would just add it to that, shake it up, and give it to him that way. I also had him on some homeopathics. Now I can't specifically share the homeopathics I put him on because they were very specific to his symptom profile. Homeopathics are selected based on the child's constitution, their symptom profile, their family history. So I don't want to share remedies here and then have people use them and they might not work for your child and can actually cause some aggravations. But I would say definitely try and work with a homeopath to, if your child has this condition, to work on the nervous system. We did a lot of vagal motor support and just kind of rebalancing the nervous system. And guys, with all of this and also getting him on some probiotics, the adjustments, the fish oil, he was completely cleared by 7 weeks. So 5 weeks, it got so bad that we were getting stressed out. And then from there, just got better, 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 better. 7 weeks, completely stopped. He was having, just to finish this video, he was having the twitches from, like, while he was sleeping in our bed. It got so bad that even while he was sleeping and there was no movement or noise at all, he was twitching. So all through the night, he'd be having these seizures, and I would just put my arms around him and just hold him and just feel him seizing, but there was nothing I could do to stop them except to wake him up, which we didn't want to do too much. So he started getting to a point where they were not just happening in the car or through noise, but also when things were still and there was no motion or movement or sound. So those are kind of what we experienced. But again, by 7 weeks, it was completely cleared up, and now he's doing so well. He's thriving and all that. So I'm going to insert some videos of what it looked like at the end of this video. But if you have any questions or anything you want to know, please comment them down below and I will help any way that I can. I hope you guys have a beautiful new year, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Like he hasn't ever done that. It's just started on the way home.
Should I wake him up, see if it stops?
Yeah. That was just a big one. I missed it.
Your head away, so.
It's mainly in his feet, but it's okay, choo-choo train.